That was a whole thing, right?
Yeah. Outside providers can come and run it.
Yep. You know, it's just so slick. I can do that when I can go through the items.
You scroll up, you know, your checkout.
No.
Click right on it, it's through Adobe.
It's cool.
It is cool, that's
Yeah,
good.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
We do that. And then I did pull the files. Okay. Other content. I should do that.
Is there anything you want me to pull?
That's probably through 90 pages.
I
I know, it's really on. What do I do?
This piece, that's how I learned how to do it.
How I a little bit, yeah.
Just a good reminder.
It's about busy, 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 busy. It's not slowing down. It probably won't until the day.
Good thing.
Right into that.
You said 4, right? Yeah.
Hey there.
Hi.
How are you doing? Still one, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. We're gonna sue them. Oh, I
No, I mean,
Yeah. Oh, I'm on the whole federal thing.
I know, you're busy.
I
No,
haven't
you've
got
got
to anything. Well,
relatives.
it's chaotic. It's unproductive.
Yes, that aren't,
That's, but, I saw an email.
I was like, she was gonna, I guess, try to get yeah, I was like, well, get all the emails from them. Decreases in, I'm like, I'm sure he's got his hands full of those things. So.
But you absolutely just have a conversation with
Like I said, she had to place. Oh, really? So like, pressure check.
Good to know. All right. Thank you for letting me know.
Yep.
Who?
Sorry.
Anybody?
Whoever's on Mason online.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah, I think it's backwards. I know. I totally agree. It's because I think that was broken.
He's good on there? Yes.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 voting members. Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey.
Maybe we're just not as close to the, you see my dark tables are like right up there.
I don't know.
Okay, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Tom Gonzalez. I will call to order the March 27th, 2025 Region 2 Opioid Abatement Council meeting. We do have a quorum of voting members. Is that correct? Thank you, Liv. And thank you for joining everyone to our meeting. We've got, as always, a full agenda. We will try to end on time. We'll do our best. Public comment. Do we have anybody that would like to make a public comment that is not on the agenda? Hearing none, seeing none, we will close public comment. Next item is approval of the February 27, 2025 ROAC meeting minutes. Any voting members would like to make a motion or discuss the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes. Is there any conversation? Hearing none. Does anybody oppose that motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right, next item is membership structure review. This is something we try to do every year just to talk about the unique structure of the governance of our Regional 2 Opioid Abatement Council. This is part of the IG with the COAG, the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council, as part of also our bylaws. So as you see, we do have 6 voting members, and those are the representative key folks, or 1, 2, 4 of the representative folks today of the 6. We also have advisory members. The advisory members are specific, and you'll see that we have under bullet 3, community representative lived experience. We do have 3 members in that bullet that represent the advisory members. We appreciate that as well. Voting members as well as advisory members are certainly authorized to participate in deliberation. That's important. We want to hear participation. We want to hear thoughts. We want to hear disagreement. We want to hear whatever it is to provide all the information to have the best outcome. Welcome, Commissioner Shattuck McNally. We got 5 of our voting members. But advisory members do not ultimately vote. That is the 6 representative appointed members. We also, it's very important, have subject matter experts. They are authorized to present, but do not deliberate. And when you look at the bullets there, that could be just about anybody that has a role in opioid abatement, recovery, treatment, those kind of things. So we very much want to hear from our subject matter experts, so we absolutely can be informed and make the best decisions to ultimately prevent deaths from overdoses. Also, just want to always remind, in our bylaws, we do have kind of some guiding principles for members. And as Liv's putting those up, a couple of things just to remind us all that under Article 4, if we can scroll down, please. There we go. Any bouncing around on this stuff. Just go scroll down a little bit more. Right here, there's just these 5 guiding principles for all the membership on the council. First is we want to make sure we always disclose and properly manage a conflict of interest. We discussed that thoroughly with our legal counsel, David Arod, last month, which led to me excusing myself on a potential conflict of interest and turning over the chair to Commissioner Shattuck McNally. We want to make sure we're always handling confidential information in a professional, private manner. We also want to make sure we have attendance at these meetings as much as we can, because it's so important to hear from everyone on when we're looking at making big decisions. So in our bylaws, it says missing 3 consecutive council meetings. Talking with David, our legal, that's mainly around unexcused meetings. So we want to make sure if anybody has to miss a meeting, that happens. I missed one this summer due to a conflict, that we email Liv and me as the chair to make sure we know that you will not be able to attend. We did hear from one of our advisory members, Shane, Marshall, that Marshall is unable to attend today. So we did receive that. And then just making sure, our behavior and then those kind of things are intact. So we just want to do that once a year to make sure we all understand the structure of the Regional Opioid Abatement Council, the 3 categories of membership. Everybody is important here. Everybody's voice we want to be heard. We want to hear different views. We want to hear altering ideas, because that ultimately leads, I believe, to the best outcome and product, which is our goal to serve the community in preventing opioid crisis and opioid overdoses and those kind of things. Any questions or further comments regarding that from the members? I'm going to make sure Mayor Pro Mason, okay, good, thank you. All right, we'll be moving on to the main event of this meeting. That's grant administration. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 funding proposals. We've asked each of the grantee, just like last month, to please come up and just provide your proposal. We don't need the background, your mission, vision. We know these organizations very well and appreciate their work in our community. So they've been given about 3 to 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes for questions from the council. So our first one is Abundance Foundation. We'll ask you to come on up and present your budget proposal to the council.
How's it going? Brian Bauer from the Abundance Foundation. So this is our proposal for this next round of funding. We're trying to hire more staff. We realize that we can hire 4 recovery coaches for the 100,000. So the total is, excuse me, the total is 250. We realized that we were asking originally for $50,000 per coach, but we can do it for 25. We can hire more people for less money because they can become self-sustainable by the Medicaid reimbursements that we do. So we could actually do more with less at that point, which gives us more on the back end. So we're still asking for more money for additional housing. We just finally closed on the women's house. So we finally have that. That's just been probably the most difficult real estate deal of all time, but we figured it out. So more money for housing, put the utility funds on there. The big thing on this is trying to open a recovery center. We want to try and find something, a commercial property like Midtown Fort Collins, because we're doing a lot of things in different locations throughout Fort Collins and Loveland, but we are kind of spread out. We want to do something that's like an overall resource center for everything that we're doing under one roof. There's a couple buildings that we're looking at. I put one on the next slide. So this is right off of like College and Swallow. They were trying to turn it in. They talked about turning it into another grocery store because we don't have enough grocery stores in Fort Collins, like an Aldi's or something was the article that I read on it, but it's still for sale. So we're looking into talking to the people that own that property. It's sitting there doing nothing right now, but it also has additional lease space to have multiple other businesses within it. It's a 25,000 square foot building. So our capital campaign project would be for 100,000 as an initial baseline on this. We're running an awareness event for like bigger philanthropists and private donors in the area on April 17th to kind of get them involved in our mission and vision of what we have going on. And that's going to lead into our Ask event in October to try and get enough capital campaign funding for a deal like this. But I'd like to go into that event with something on the ground floor, as in we got support funding from the Abatement Council for 100,000, where we can go into that and say, we already have this in the pot, and we're looking for people that want to match this level of funding to get us to that 4 million for a property like this. So that's where we are currently at right now.
Wonderful. A reminder, council members, we do have a policy when it comes to capital asset investments. We attach that into the packet. And so there is a capital investment being asked here. That does trigger the policy. So I just want to put that on now, but I'll open it to questions from the council. Yes, Commissioner.
First, I have a question before on the the funding for the recovery. I don't know if you can go back, what they're, I want to make sure it's an accurate term used. You talked about the recovery coaches using Medicaid funding to kind of cover the rest of it, but knowing that, that's why I was running a little late. We had an emergency meeting across the state regarding the cuts at the federal level to public health. And then there was Medicaid funding, which is going to be severe. So do you have a plan B or C to cover that if that funding is not as available as it is? And then the state just lost a tremendous amount of funding that they got clawed back. So I'm just curious about.
Yeah, we have some other private grant funding that we're looking into in the meantime. The grant writers have about 8 to 10 other grant proposals that we're looking at that are outside of that. Also, that's why we're trying to get into the private donation sector and try and get other bigger philanthropists in Colorado and then outside of Colorado that want to be involved in what we have going on as we're growing here and also expanding into other places. So we are working on it. That was something but in the meetings that I've been in, the information that I've been sent, the aspect of peer services in Medicaid in Colorado isn't in jeopardy at this point. From the information that I have, or what you've been given, it's different.
I don't know. I'm hearing everything's in jeopardy at this point. I've been in meetings, I feel like I'm in meetings 12 hours, I'm not kidding, 12 hours a day right now.
Yeah,
So
believe
I
it.
just,
If you have it, by all means, let me know, because everything that I have from behavioral health in Colorado has not mentioned anything about this specific service being.
and then, if I might, Mr. Chair, Stan, so you don't have a contract yet, it's just for you to be able to.
Yeah, this is just one of the properties that we're.
So what happens if it falls through? What are you gonna do? I mean, we
Fine.
you give 100,000 back, or what would happen?
There's other properties in the area that we are looking at potentially. This is just the most feasible for the location that we're looking at. But I mean, we don't have anything under contract at this point. And going into the capital campaign in October, it gives us really between now and then to really focus in on exactly what we're trying to get a property at. It's just hard to find in the specific area. There's a lot of stuff like more north Fort Collins, but we were trying to look at more central so that it's easy access and on main bus routes and those type of things.
Yeah, Commissioner, you raise a great question. Same question I had in terms of policy. We certainly want to hear from others. The question I have, I'm looking to our finance folks, sorry to put you on the spot. Is there a way that you could craft the agreement, a grant that is contingent on the property and this and that, and there's additional funding to cover that, so that there isn't 100,000 or at least 50,000 going to them and that maybe falls through?
I believe we could work with the attorneys to come up with something that would be agreeable to everybody.
And Christine.
Yep.
Thank you, Christine. Appreciate you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Luxon. I'm sitting in for David Aroe today. Yes, we could put something into the contract that basically sets either like a deadline or a timeline or something that makes those funds contingent. And that's something that I can work with John Boss on and making sure that's clear in the contract. That's something we can do.
Thank you for that. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just wondering, a little bit of confusion. On page 10, you apply that you have the 70% success rate, although down further in your packet information, that's your goal to get to 70%. So that's a little confusion that I'd like for you to clarify. Number one. Number two is you indicate this building to be held for like social events and things like that. I'd like to know where those are being held currently. And thirdly, the building, the upkeep, the maintenance, that's a concern of mine. Just for purchasing is one thing, but sustaining it is another. And I'll stop at that so you can not forget those questions.
Okay, so first so we have over the 70% sobriety rate right now, but the way that we started recently tracking data points from October was now we have a algorithm that we can start plugging data into, where we can consider an overall success rate to be that they're sober, fully employed, and living self-sufficiently. So we haven't been able to get, until now, enough time in between to start tracking that. So we're trying to get, but that's at a 55% area right now for the full success rate. But a lot of it is because a lot of our clients are still living in halfway house and sober living and those type of things. And we haven't got them, there just hasn't been enough time to get them to that yet. Or people that have been through our program, trying to get back in touch with them because they're out living their lives and getting them to fill out a survey. It's been a process, and so.
Okay.
And
the events now.
So the events we do, our dinners on Friday night at Genesis Project Church. We have space that we rent from the Aikido studio that's off of McClellan and Horsetooth. Not McClellan, Mason and Horsetooth. So that's a Aikido gym, and they have just like the mats and everything. So the women run dance there. We run fitness and HIIT classes there. The ERT program brings people, ERT and STIRT bring their people there. The women are doing dance inside the jail in Larimer County right now, but being able to have a space to do that outside of that. We use space at, we have space at the sober living houses that we're doing, that they run groups at, but it's really just the living rooms at the sober living. And then people from outside the area that we're coaching in other places come and just meet at the house. So all of those type of things. 12-step meetings, they do life recovery, some AA meetings and NA meetings in different locations, but we'd be able to have another location to be able to run the different segments of 12-step meetings and give space to them inside another location in the area.
To piggyback on what the attorney mentioned, I also think maybe there would be a possibility to do kind of like a letter of guarantee that if they meet this certain threshold, that they would, then we would consider X amount of funds to be applied to that project. So at least they have a letter from ROA stating that we are in favor of that, but that way we're not taking those funds, although we would have to pull those back.
So clarification, a great idea. You'd say there'd be a letter until, but
A
not.
letter of intent.
A letter of intent, okay.
Basically.
Christine, would that work? I think,
And could you clarify when you're saying what thresholds, what would you be looking for them to meet for us to activate that letter?
So if I might build off of this, because I'm looking at the policy, because I was looking at this, and it talked about, does the request ensure that can be used? Do they have we don't have anything about for 5 years, do they have the necessary permit, staff insurance? None of that's there yet. And so that's part of the policy. So I was gonna say, I'm not comfortable giving 100,000 until we had some of those.
Well, that's why the letter of intent,
Yeah,
those
so-
things would have to be in place.
Yeah.
In order for us to consider that. But for them to go out and get other funding and people, that letter of intent, I'm sure would be
Yeah.
helpful.
That's really what we're
achieve
looking
that
for, is
goal.
to show that we already have. I mean, it makes a big difference, but it carries a lot of weight to say that we already have, even if it's just the intent. Like if we just have the money there, then it's insignificant either way, whether you have it in its letter or whether we have it, because it's just gonna be sitting anyway. So the letter works.
Well, we couldn't, because of our policy,
Yeah.
there has to be so many steps met before we can issue that funding.
Right, so I'm gonna give an example, a real-time example that we just went through. We gave way beginning of the ARPA funding where, that was probably an example of what we should not have done, where we gave an organization $500,000. And their intent to open services that we desperately wanted to see in that area, it did not go as planned. And so it was starting to be used for things that we didn't approve, and so then they had to shift the whole thing around. And luckily, the outcome after 4 years is much closer to what we hoped, but we had to rewrite the whole agreement. And so I think that, and then we were worried that we had to have these conversations about, how are these being used? So I think it would be prudent for us to, because I feel like this is, and this is just from I'm getting a little, I'm getting a little itchy about funding all around. So I feel like if we could, this is almost a step beyond having the capital asset. And I don't know if the policy, we have this new policy, but we're already not quite following it here. I do think that letter is at least a show of good faith that we want to give you this try. But even it says here, will I be able to get this done within the year of the grant agreement? And you may not be able to get this done in a year. So then we'd have to go back and make adjustments, and it complicates things. So I like your suggestion, and maybe we don't grant that, but we could put that in a.
We just, a letter of intent that we
Yes.
like the idea, but that there's a lot yet to be accomplished before that can be granted.
and Shane, I see your hand, but before we go, I want to hear from Christine if that's something that we legally could do and it would work.
So I want to talk to David about what he thinks about that, and I can shoot him a note. But my concern would be, what does that mean for those? What are we? Is it like an illusory promise? Are we holding on to these funds, hoping that they get there, or would it be better to craft? If you want to grant these funds, craft the criteria to have these conditions that they have to meet before the funds are released. I need to ask David. I think it's a good question. I just don't know what it looks like in practice if we put those funds to the side, or our intent is to put them to the side for potential future funding. So I can find out.
Thank you, Christine. Shane, please, I'd like to hear from you.
Piggyback that a little bit. I love this idea. I love this goal of the Abundance Foundations. My concern would be that's $100,000 sitting in escrow, not doing any work. As we know, we have limited funds and more work to do than we have funds to do it with. So what kind of deadlines are we talking about? How do we release those funds by said deadline so they can still be effective for this cycle of grants and get out in the community and do work if this stalls out? I think that's a huge consideration.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, Bill, please.
I just had a question alternative, kind of wanting to hear from you. So it seems like since you're putting this forward that you think this is the best use for those funds. I still think there's so much housing need out there. Like would these, I'm just asking you, would these funds be better utilized or could they be better utilized or even split up or something to provide more housing support for people?
We can do that. I mean, we can do that as well. That's originally what we had planned. And then in talking to potential donors going into leading up to this event and trying to get the amount who we've invited to it to get in the room, one of the main questions is, what have you been able to do so far? And so it's like, well, we have this goal and we're at zero. So it's who's supporting you. And then, so the idea is just that aspect of it is, I think that there is a significant portion of that 4 million that comes from people that see like, oh, somebody from Fort Collins already supports what you guys are trying to do. And now that's got me bought in. But if I'm like, hey, this is a great vision, here's our mission, here's what we're doing, and we buy in with the heartstrings approach to it, at the same time, it's like, well, who's going to be the first one from the zero to what something, because if there's nothing to match, nobody's going to do a matching. And that was kind of my thought process in it, but I mean, I see exactly where you're coming from on money sitting in those type of things too.
Shane, yes, please.
Ryan, it would seem to me, sitting here at the end of Q1 of 2025, that the reality of closing on a property on a deal of this size, permitting, renovations, all things that are going to happen, it's pretty unlikely those things are going to be done by December of 2025.
True.
So perhaps this council would agree to write a letter of intent to support this project in the future, using these funds more effectively this year. As we come into the next grant cycle, by then ducks will probably be in a row and we'll be looking at a more realistic timeline where some funding from this council could really help get it go over the line, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's something the voting members could discuss.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too, is have this, but don't set those funds aside because we need them to be working. Totally agree. But that's something that 2026 can maybe then kick in because you would have more foundation to come to us and say, hey, this is moving forward if all these fall in and you are a part of that.
I'm good with that.
Yes, Commissioner.
You know, we have a policy, so I would say maybe look at the policy and see the things. And Christine, you know, you have a copy of that policy. That could be some of the framework that has to be in that kind of letter. But I just want to caution us and caution those looking at these funds that we're looking for shovel-ready active things, and we can't be helping kind of, you know, projects. The county has done a lot of projects over the last few years, but people have come with this that have the land bought or the churches letting them build the housing. And there's a lot of stress on the system right now with funding being cut and changed. And so just understand it. It's not that we don't want to do these things. It's just that we have to be very prudent in understanding and follow policy. So I don't want to discourage you from your dream. I'm really grateful to hear the Women's House is finally open.
Yeah,
I think that should also be showing your investors that you were able to do that. So you have a lot of track record and you've gotten funding from us in the past. And I think that also should show when you're out there trying to help with people that you were able to be successful with that. So I think there is some things that you can use to try to reach out to others.
So there is, and I went over it. I read through the whole policy of it, and that's why we were going back and forth with the grant writers and with Liv on should we even bring this idea up. And it was just like, I'm going to bring the idea to see what your thoughts are on it, because this is just, I mean, this has happened over the last couple of months where it's like, we're so spread out that we need to figure out the next step. And so it's just at the beginning of that process now. And so it's good feedback to hear what all of the things are that we're going to need to get in place for that. But I like the idea of putting it off till definitely the next cycle by all means.
So moving on spirit of time. So if I understand that with the 100,000, we're gonna, that right now for that building, is not really looked, sorry, I'm not talking well. So basically taking down 150,000, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you propose 250 to us from the beginning? Was that part of the
We
plan?
did, we were going to put that to additional housing because we don't have another property lined up yet, but we do have 2 other ones in Loveland that we're currently looking at right now also.
So
So we can.
I would throw out, sorry, I did not mean to
No, go ahead.
interrupt you. I'd throw out the spirit of time here is that we put a hold on this, Brian, and that maybe go back to the drawing board and look at spending the $250,000 for items now, shovel ready, as the commissioner said, and come back to this council next month.
Okay.
That's a proposal. I would like to hear from the council. I don't think we're comfortable. And if we only approve the 150, then there's still 100,000 that maybe you could use or not. Then it complicates things from the grant process. Am I right, John? We'd have to have 2 different grants or contracts.
Yep, and we've done that before.
Okay?
Also, I think it'd be helpful, I know you say you have other grants to back up the recovery coaches. I think maybe just show what you're doing because we hear all the time, we're working on this grant or that grant, and right now everyone's losing their grants. We're frantic, frozen. It's just a different period of time right now. So just kind of maybe showing that because, I think that these are really lofty goals and it's really important, but I think things are gonna look really different here in the next 6 months. So as of today, we're both in emergency meetings today going, so, yeah.
And maybe to have timelines when those grants are supposed to be granted.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that information, at least have it listed where where you're asking and the date, in which, because that was my other concern was, that's not a livable rate.
Right.
And so my concern was, just what Commissioner brought up.
Yeah.
How are you gonna sustain the rest of the funding, so.
Would you be available to come next month?
Yeah, I can do that.
And we want to make sure you hear from us. We value your work. Your work is important. The Women's House in Loveland is extraordinary. But we would probably not comfortable with this proposal. We can come back with the proposal of the 250,000 or the work in that bucket. That'd be great.
Yeah. Do that.
Anybody want to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to put a pause on this application and this grant item to be in this bucket of funding for a future meeting for further discussion and decision.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next month.
Yep, appreciate it.
Okay, Yarrow Collective. Welcome.
For having us back. As you know, my name is Siren. I use they her he pronouns. I'm the director of Yarrow Collective.
I'm Gina Rupp. I am the administrative director and one of our harm reduction team facilitators, and I use she, her.
Yeah, so we'll just scroll back through the first couple slides. We just put those in there as review, just our active harm reduction and recovery support groups happening. We did want to touch briefly on this slide, since these numbers are fresh, data analysis from our 2024 programming amongst the folks across all of our peer support groups who voluntarily gave their demographic information. At least 93% of them reported having at least one marginalized identity, which is something we're really proud of, in that we are who we serve. So you can see a more specific breakdown there. And then moving into our proposal for you all for this next funding cycle.
Yeah, so We are asking, the first part of what we're asking, there's a couple of different approved uses for approved B. But here we're asking for adding about 80 hours weekly of one-on-one and group peer support services. These funds are going specifically for people who have OUD and SUD, folks that are in our Larimer County Jail, and other folks who are reentering the community. So work release, community corrections, those types of programs, and then really anybody else in the community who's seeking any type of harm reduction or recovery support.
Then next, also under approved use B, we want to expand capacity in a physical location that we're going to be opening in the next few months with a new grant from CDPHE that we got. We're going to have our own physical location, not shared with other organizations. It's the first time we get to move out of our 8x8 closet. And this fund would help us expand the amount of services we're able to offer in that location. So increased outreach for overdose reversal supplies, more drop-in peer support, which those hours would go towards, as well as continuing that monthly social connectedness event, which we started with the first year of funding we got from you all last year. And our participants at those events are really asking if they get to continue and if they'll go on. So we want to make sure we're doing that monthly still.
Here, still under use B, we have our, we really want to just educate. We want to like reduce stigma, and we have previously, and Silent brought up some examples as well, which we can hand out. But here, over in this bottom right corner, we created some amazing educational little cards about like mental health and suicide. And we want to do the same thing for harm reduction, substance use, those types of things. And so that'll be through like our social media and email, as well as like definitely getting this out to the general public as well.
Quick question.
Where are you having these out? Where are you educating and which groups?
We hand those out when we're tabling at groups. So events like overdose prevention events, Pride events, Trans Day Visibility this weekend is where we'll be handing stuff like this out this weekend. So yeah, wherever we are physically handing stuff out.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, then next, addressing needs of individuals in the criminal justice system. We have a little bit of jail inmate peer support going on with part-time hours devoted to it. And since we've started that, we've consistently had a wait list of over 50 people asking for peer support from a Yarrow peer in the Larimer County Jail. So plenty of demand to add another full-time jail-based peer support position.
And if I could interrupt here, and I love that. Thank you very much. I was very excited to see that. Although in number 1, page 23, you kind of group that as far as your reporting with all the other. And I would really like to have that given more detail by itself, because I think by what you said, there's a huge demand for that. And I don't want those funds for that particular additional person to be the data loss within the other things you're gonna be reporting on.
Yeah. So we have a different tracking system for one-on-one peer support that is kind of like wherever that person's hours are funded from, that's where they're reporting the number of one-on-one sessions they're having, as well as like the feedback that we're getting from those peers. So we'd make sure we can separate that out from just overall participants coming to events, for instance.
And the funds will be for that. It won't be maybe watered down and not fulfill that jail piece.
Yeah, it'd be going towards that person's personnel hours for, yeah.
So, and yeah, just to kind of add into that, because I'm in the jail every Friday and a little bit more often now, because with that list, I've been trying to fulfill some of those one-on-one requests as well. Larimer County Jail was asked if we could embed a peer into their jail. It makes us a little uncomfortable for obvious reasons. Yeah. Oh, so where like they have like a radio, they're like in there nonstop, like they have an office there, that type of thing. They would still work for Yarrow, but be constantly in the jail nonstop. And so yeah, the county jail is like really there, the need is there, they're interested. So yeah, this is definitely a position that is, which is why we didn't want to put that into the slide and just adding the 80 hours. It was more specific that this is going to Larimer County Jail.
Okay, thank you.
So how do you track, not everyone in the Larimer County Jail is a Larimer County resident, and so are you also tracking folks where they're from and that kind of like zip codes kind of data and things like that?
Yeah, the jail is managing the wait list for that, just since their outreach folks have a better idea of that system, and that's something we can filter for when we're looking at that wait list and deciding like which peer is taking which requests.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, then just scrolling up one slide,
Yes, so this was something that we thought was really exciting. We currently have a family support program that is kind of different and separate than like our total harm reduction work. But we typically, most of those women, those mothers are dual diagnosis and have OUD or SUD. And they've been asking probably for years, but I know for a fact for months, for a social group to meet, to get together, to talk with other parents and get their kiddos together and something like that. And so that's what this is about, is really just creating that community. And it's been an ask for such a long time. We're like, we're gonna really try to make it happen, so.
yeah, and then lastly, just wanting to make sure all of those new peers that we're hiring to do that one-on-one support, that drop-in support, have the correct and appropriate trainings to deliver best practices. So expanding our capacity to deliver those best practices through liberatory harm reduction trainings, intentional peer support trainings, and so on. So yeah, curious to hear what other questions you all have.
So some of these trainings are going to Nebraska to be trained?
No, we don't have a lot of photos from our trainings, so we're like, how can we make it personable? And that's, yeah, we're not going to Nebraska.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
You mentioned you have a Greeley group, but I really appreciate that you're reaching out to other areas. But again, looking at the funding, for Larimer County, I was wondering, are you being specific on the funds that go towards the Greeley division, keeping them separate from the Larimer County?
Yeah, it's actually a grant that we're contracted through CDPHE through NCHA to do. So we like invoice for those funds. Our funds are kept very separate. I'm, as the administrative director, our team is like, really? I'm like, yes.
For reporting, where were you?
Yeah,
Make sure that the hours are getting reported to the right grants.
Absolutely.
And how about Estes Park? Have you had any consideration of doing something? I know we're small, but going out there at least a little bit would be nice to have you put some thought to.
Yeah, we definitely have folks from Estes Park that we meet with one-on-one that are in the jail, and we continue those conversations outside. But we haven't actually gotten up there ourselves yet, and I don't think that that's something that we're opposed to. I think we just haven't had the capacity and having those extra personnel hours to get somebody up there is definitely something we could do.
Yeah, I would really like to see that, be in the forefront.
Yes.
So last grant cycle, you guys talked about expanding to Loveland and having more of a presence. So, that was really important for me to expand the geographic reach. So how is that going? And is this part of that process too, to keep that expansion? So you're outside of just Fort Collins?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've been, we did, and we'll, I think maybe come back next month to do our final report on that. But yeah, we've been in Loveland, we've been at the resource center, we've been having our groups there, we've taken folks to the Chilson, all kinds of different places, bowling. And so yeah, we've definitely branched out into Loveland. We're definitely there as often as we can, and we've definitely got folks that we like to spend time with down there for sure. So yeah, we would continue that.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think you're the first ones that have brought anything for the section for.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you for that. And I think that this, if we fund this, that this would go toward that bucket, is that correct?
But last month, remember we had the housing that we're increasing for the pregnant women, and we were looking at supporting that even more. Remember, they had the red point, and so they had brought that, and that was housing for pregnant women, so that was.
So we're gaining momentum.
That was the first one, was the
Oh.
actual housing, and then this is the second one.
Well, I think they were coming back with something back. Yeah, they were gonna come back with that. Yeah, so, but yes, I do remember. So yeah, I just was wondering how that would be, kept track of and under that bucket.
It's under.
We put that funding into the equity bucket.
Yeah, so will we move it back to that, address needs of pregnant, parents and women?
I think that's a very good point, and I would recommend we did that, yes, because that is exactly what, absolutely.
So would we take, they asked for that bucket, so would we take that portion of what, because I don't know if this is how much that amount is, but we should probably spell that out in the, there it is, yeah.
$11,376,000, is that it?
Yeah.
I would like to see.
Probably, I'm like, not,
Oh,
yeah.
That sounds about
Yes,
right.
that's what's on here.
It's on it, but yes, that is the correct number, yes.
I mean, I would like to see the original amount, because we transferred it over knowing that we really didn't at the time have anything that would fit in that bucket. But that we felt through momentum it would, so
It was 80,000.
I would like to put that amount back in so we know where we're at, so we know, not that we can't change things again, but I at least want to have that amount.
Sure, and I think we've got a couple of things going here, but we can absolutely do that. Piece of where that funding coming from, but again, back to spirit of time here, because we've got 4 more. Any questions regarding the actual submittal, that proposal? I do have one. It's more of a request. As you're aware, our community health improvement plan is all around reducing social isolation and creating more community for everyone. Definitely just ask that you be connected with my team, Dr. Jared Olson and Joe Buckley, as much as possible with this work, because there's other work going on. We want to make sure we leverage all that specifically to that work on reducing social isolation.
Is that good?
Yeah,
We're involved.
thank you.
Yes,
I know there's great work going on. We just want to make sure it's connected.
absolutely, yeah, we're in a lot of those types of meetings that we make sure that our numbers are getting in there and that we're hearing the requests and what's needed, so.
What makes my day is you knew what chip meant. Yes, Shane.
On the parenting support, are you doing anything for dads?
Yes, it is, so we're not gonna, if the dads are there, we're not gonna be like, you can't hang out here, you have to go, you can't sit with us. So yeah, through our groups that we have, any of the dads that are in our peer program, like I said, it's kind of a separate program through Spark. I don't know if any of y'all heard about that with Housing Catalyst. Yes, any of the folks that are involved there and anybody who wants to come to the parent. Okay, yes.
Any further comments, questions, concerns?
I just have a little bit of a concern for the sustainability after these funds are dwindled down with, I know you're allowed to ask for the indirect and some of these other things that you're asking for seem to worry me a little bit because the funds, are not going to be there forever. And I really want to have good thought put into sustainability for this because it's a great project. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'll say that and it says it in our proposal, but I think all but one of our positions are all matched funding. So we do have very diverse funding. We're getting into, now we're gonna have our own space. We're getting more into donor specific or private donors with foundations, things like that. And so between that and then we've been looking at Medicaid, we've been going back and forth between, is this sustainable period for us to do? And so that's something that we've talked about as well, but we are, definitely continuing to diversify funding.
Yes, ma'am.
And I agree with you. I still have concerns with all of them for some of
Yes,
the
not
indirect.
just you guys.
Yeah. And, we have our capital asset policy and it's a certain amount that we're really looking at. But when we start paying for laptops and furnitures and couches, what happens in a year or two, it feels like, I understand what you need that for, because you're moving your space, but still at the same time, we're taking that money for that and not actually for the, folks. So I just want to kind of speak out loud, the same as you, that really we want to see these funds more for direct services and maybe not, we really want to kind of, I don't know, I feel like we really got to be careful about buying TVs and couches and chairs and we have to start thinking about, I know we're starting to get more scrutiny from the federal and state level, the AG's office, they might come through and say, well, you pay for a lot of, things. I just want to kind of think about that going forward, that maybe we should talk about what that looks like. So, and then what percentage of the application or the amount of things.
And I agree with this, I'm not comfortable funding all of that even today. I think those items need to be removed from the grant request. But that's just my take.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I'm just wondering, I didn't come up with my first thought was just the 206, 14 is what my thought was, but some of that, the training, I think is very important. I would agree with that. The facilitators, things like that. So I would take everything above the laptop computers. Well, there's a few things under that. Communications support. What do you,
That's the educational one.
the
part of it.
educational
Mhm.
piece. Yeah, I think just, I would say, I would approve of removing the television, the furniture, the chairs, the pantry resource, the desk, and the chairs. So the last, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, whatever that calculates out to, I would be in support of funding the other, but not those.
And if I may share a different perspective,
Sure.
when we're trying to create safe spaces and spaces for inclusion and so forth, the TAC 212 project, part of that was furniture and getting things like that to create that space. So I think that's, if there was, a lot of $5,000 worth of TVs and stuff like that, I probably would question it too. But in this case, I feel this is de minimis in the sense of the overall grant and helps support creating these spaces so people feel connected and safe and valued and all that. So I don't particularly have a problem with that.
I agree with that. I
Those are
think
good
it's,
points.
I think it's a level that just supports what they are trying to do and it's, if they don't get it here, they're gonna have to find other grants or other ways, donations or whatever. And some of the stuff, this sort of like the resource pantry has harm reduction supplies and stuff that definitely go, and the TV helps with training. So I feel like there's, even the laptops, they have to, anyone working anywhere has to have a laptop now. So I feel like it's all very much necessary for what they do. So I would support keeping it in.
If I might add, every moment that one of our participants feels comfortable staying a little bit longer in this drop-in space is more time that they're not on the street, doing drugs with their friends. If they feel comfortable and just want to hang out there, that's part of the intention of the space is they can come sit on the couch, chill, read a book, have some tea and just hang out for the whole time that the office is open. So that's part of the intention and why we're trying to create the space as welcoming and somewhere that someone feels comfortable hanging out. They're not just sitting in, a DMB chair waiting for their peer to be ready,
I appreciate those points and that, well,
I appreciate it scrutinizing. I think that there's a balance for
yeah,
sure.
there is balance.
And I do think you make a good point, you both make a good point, but I think maybe they're all hearing this, that we're kind of looking at that a little more scrutiny. And let's say you guys come back again next year and you ask for 5 more new couches, then.
And then,
You know what I'm saying, we're gonna be a little more, I think we're looking at this a little more scrutiny wise, so just because, but I can understand that you got a new space, I can see that, but I think if you can, you know, like you said, I think the TV, right, training, that makes sense, that was a good point. So I just wanna, we know things cost. I mean, I was looking at the laptops like, oh yeah, that's how much computers cost. I mean, it's kind of sad, but yeah, so I can support it, I think, but I just want to kind of tell everybody, we're cautioning, with caution, we're gonna be a little more scrutiny. I'm gonna be a little more scrutinizing that going forward.
And Mayor Pro Temp Mason, just want to make sure if you have anything to add to this conversation.
No, I think it's been a great discussion, and I agree with the commissioner in that, you know, obviously, you know, we want to look at these things, I think, a little bit more scrutiny going forward. I would definitely encourage the group, you know, I think I would be comfortable funding this time around. But if it comes to you know, the next cycle, and you know, some of the same things are going to be being asked for, I don't know that I would support that at that time. So I can certainly understand the need, and so I could be in support this round. So
Yes.
One thing, just for future discussion, because I think both Trustee Youngkin and I have always looked at kind of the indirect costs, and I appreciate maybe 20%, but maybe we need to think about policy about that, so there's a guideline, so then it's not a surprise, and maybe we put a guideline, have that discussion about what's really maybe best practice. So,
Especially as our funds are starting to go down, I think we need to look at that.
and I think that would be helpful also for the grantees to understand that.
All right.
With that, I'll make a motion that we fully fund the request of 312,713.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation?
Thank you.
With this being let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, signal by aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously. Thank you. A great job on the level of work.
Yeah.
I also I emailed or asked this to get emailed out, but we have annual report in. If any of you want a physical copy, we'd love to just on everything that's going on. I think some of the table too, so.
All right, next, moving us along, Fort Collins Rescue Mission / Harvest House.
Yep.
You don't need to see the slide with my name on it. So yeah, in an effort to expedite things, I jump ahead as far as I can and give you guys less time to ask questions that you have. My hope is that this looks somewhat similar, at least from the financial aspect, because we haven't changed it. It was our understanding, and as you all have shared, that the funding is going to be going down from the ROAC. So even though some of our personnel costs have risen, we kept our ask the same, and we're going to be supplementing that ourselves, just in an effort to stay consistent with you all. There is one slight change. So as I've shared before, we've had an overwhelming amount of success with our intake, with bringing in individuals from Fort Collins Rescue Mission, which was a big goal of ours. Also going to be adding 8 beds to you all support. So we really want to increase support for intake. We want to be able to be in the community more, engaging with those in need, those who are most vulnerable. And so we've switched it. It before was funding for, at Harvest Farm, 1 case manager and 1 case manager / intake specialist. And for that individual who's actually here, he's back there, he's great. We have seen him, I have personally seen him be pushed as probably about as far as I can possibly push him and have him hold a caseload while also managing intakes. The need has gone up significantly. It continues to rise. We are staying more full than we ever have been. We're getting more calls. than we're used to. Typically during the summer, we see the call volume dip down, right, because the motivation of winter and cold weather is no longer at play. We haven't seen that be the case, even with things warming up and getting nicer outside. So with that, that is why we were making that change. And so instead of a split role, we want it to be a full-time intake and a full-time case manager for funding. And then our 2 community life coordinators at the shelter stay the same, as that allows us to continue to maintain 24-hour operation, which without that 24-hour operation, we're going back to really basic nitty-gritty of shelters, which is food, a place to sleep, and then being asked to leave pretty darn early in the morning, at which point you're not able to access services like case management, attend groups, really receive the services that you need in order to exit homelessness and overcome your substance abuse. Let's go to the next slide, please. Great. And so these are our objectives as they're outlined. So we want to continue to increase referrals from Fort Collins Rescue Mission to Harvest Farm. 38 to 42 is not a huge jump, but the one we had previously was a significant jump, trying to be reasonable and realistic in our estimations. My expectation is, as it was before, that we would exceed that, particularly with expansion of shelter services and expansion of Harvest Farm. But I think this is still a great service to the community. And at Fort Collins Rescue Mission, we want to sustain guest engagement, where we have at least 75 instances of guests engaging with support groups and care at the shelter. And then, of course, maintaining 24/7 shelter operations, which this council has helped us to do. Yes, Beth.
So you said 75, but it says 750.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you're correct. Thank you very much, 750.
Okay, I want to make sure.
It's a bit of a gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, thank you so much. Yep, always back there shaking her head, looking at me.
So, yes.
Can you tell us briefly, bring us up to date on those 8 beds, how those are coming?
Yes, I would love to. Also, I think we're the last on the docket to also discuss that. So I leave it up to you guys. If you want me to talk about it now, I
I'm
can.
sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, whatever you guys want, I will gladly do that.
No, we're fine. I wish I could just get, I have so much information spinning in my head today, so I'm trying to get like that.
Yeah.
So this is for opiate use disorder. And so I see a lot of SUD, and there's a lot of, I don't know there's the link, but really focusing on homeless services, but we're really supposed to show that nexus to
Sure.
opiate use disorder. So I see a lot of SUD, so can you tell me, how are you tracking that, and how are you making that connection so we can show that these funds are actually, that it is?
Going specifically for opioid use disorder.
Right, and because, I think that things are just gonna get a little more scrutiny and tightening down as, a few months and a year, and so I just wanna make sure,
Yeah,
for
that's a
this,
fair
it is,
question.
I think it's a fair question because you guys are expanding and probably have all kinds of funding streams, but it would just be great that we kind of always ask that for all of our grantees to show that connection.
I think it's great.
Now, we know it can't be 100% pure, right?
Sure.
But if there's some kind of connection and have OUD in some of the discussion or the materials, that would be.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I will say we do track at intake primary, secondary, and tertiary drug of choice. And I think as with most providers, it's, I think long gone are the days of someone is really specific to only one substance. Polysubstance abuse is the most common. And opioids tend to intersect with that heavily. It's a lot of words, though, that doesn't answer your question of what is the exact percentage. And I'd have to pull that. I can tell you we have access and the ability to do that, but if I were to tell you something right now, it wouldn't be accurate. I don't think that's fair to you.
Would love to have a follow-up, so.
Yeah.
And you can always do it. We meet next week with Deidre Rouse.
That's right. I see you guys all the time,
I
yeah.
see you all the time, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure, I'd be happy to do
That's
that.
a good point. And from the data that we have at Public Health, the days of one substance, we know meth is still, unfortunately, alcohol is still, unfortunately, an opioid wraps in there, a little bit of cocaine. And so when we're looking at this from a data standpoint, typically opioid is somewhere in there, unfortunately. And so it is difficult, but I do appreciate you being able to tell those.
Yeah, I'll give you what you can, and I'll paint a very accurate picture with the promise that if we need to collect more, we can do that and refine it.
Yeah, I think it's always, we're gonna need a lot more data for data-informed decisions as we go forward with a lot of this work, so Certainly I know the complexities, but it would be great to have some of that.
Yes, we got it.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I like how you shifted to the intake specialist and the case manager, with still the community life coordinator. So I like how you've met what you've learned, and then you changed to meet what you need. And I think just to the point that Commissioner just brought up is, when we talk about saving lives, these are folks who are probably most risk of death. Really, so I think this is a place, I think showing the data is absolutely important, and making sure that we're held accountable to where the funding is going is important, so that's there, but I would just say, I think, I would just give a lot of support to the need here.
Excellent point, excellent point.
And our cost is still nothing, which is always important to say, for those who receive services from us.
That is important, and I appreciate that, not to say that everyone has to do this, but I appreciate that, you're not adding indirect costs to this grant.
We'll absorb that. We have a very established development team and donation, so we'll absorb that ourselves.
One question, on the two different community life coordinator positions.
Yeah.
Is that being subsidized? Because that's really not a sustainable, wage, perhaps.
I think our staff would agree.
I'm sure they would.
Our staff would agree. Yeah, Paula's laughing at me again. She does it a lot. So actually Paul and I were just talking back there, and the average right now for our community life coordinators is about 55,000 that we're paying them. We've done compensation studies and increases for our employees. We did a 3% flat increase with every employee. And so again, instead of putting that in here and asking more money from you all with our expectation that our funding is going down, we made the decision to leave it in here as is, and just the expectation that we'll absorb those costs.
Okay, so they are being taken care of in other means.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not, you see the 45,651, that is not representative of what their annual salary is. That's just representative of what we're asking, and then we would be offsetting the rest of that.
Great question. Thank you for the clarification, because I now thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the 247,562.
I'll second it.
We got it.
Thank you for not putting it indirect. Yes.
You're very welcome.
We'll make that as part of the motion. We got a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none. Please signal by yes or aye for favor of the motion.
Aye.
Anybody oppose the motion? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you for all your work.
so much.
Saving lives. Thank
I'll
you.
bring that next week, okay?
I'll see you next week.
Okay, moving right along, we got our CSU Prevention Research Center work with the 3 school districts in Larimer County. Dr. Nathan Ricks.
Hello again, everybody. Before I forget, we're also going to be asking for a vote to extend year 2 to the end of June, if possible. My team will almost literally, they will kill me if I forget that.
It's on the agenda.
Okay, good. Okay.
After all that, yep.
Okay, so year 3, we're working with each of the 3 school districts in Larimer County. At a glance, the scope of work for this year 3 is to continue implementing the Blues program that we've had a lot of success with in all 3 of the school districts. And then the second goal is to sustain school district specific work. I've talked about these programs. I'm not going to go into too much detail on them. If you have any questions about them, happy to answer. And then the third goal is really kind of a small goal, and that is really to just to sustain educators going through our professional development. We won't be creating any new professional development modules or anything like that, but just continuing to certify them as they go through those modules. So this is where we've been with the Blues program. This is expected this year, and then this is what we're anticipating next year for year 3. So some nice growth there as the facilitators are, we're training more and more facilitators, and they are gaining more capacity to do so. This one is for you, Commissioner Shattuck McDowell. At least once you've asked me, where's the research that shows that programs like these can actually reduce opioid use? We know that they can reduce substance use in youth, but as precursors to opioid use, but do they actually decrease opioid use? This is just a handful of a few studies that have found this in very reputable journals, as well as a couple of calls to action to increase funding for youth substance use as an opioid use reduction strategy. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I will definitely read that.
So this is Poudre School District wanted to serve their LGBTQI identifying youth. And so we identified the most evidence-based program that we could find. And we're going to be implementing that in year 3, training 5 folks in 5 high schools to implement that. And then they're going to do some train the trainer of up to 73 more staff to continue to support that. And then we're going to evaluate it. And then goal for Thompson School District, we're going to continue implementing the E-Checkup to Go program. We'll have some evaluation of that in the coming months. This is the first year that we've implemented this, so we'll be able to tell you more about the effectiveness of that in all 5 high schools in Thompson School District. Next slide. And then in Estes Park, we will be supporting the implementation of a universal school-based preventive intervention called Second Step. Very evidence-based, and then a family-focused intervention called Guiding Good Choices. So we've had some folks that have actually already gone through the training to implement that. So we'll be facilitating, providing training, technical assistance, and then evaluation for that program. So all in all, what is that? 1, 2, 4, 5 evidence-based programs that are going to be implemented in schools around Larimer County. I don't know why this picture is here, please. That's not me. And then goal 3 is just to sustain that 20 hours, just sustain the learning management system and continue the certifications. So this is the proposed budget. This is for the PRC personnel. Just as a reminder, this person here, I remember a couple of years ago, we were deciding, did we want the FTE for this to go to the school districts so that they could manage a lot of this stuff, or did the school districts want to consolidate that at the PRC? And so that the school district said we don't have the capacity to do that, so we do, and that's this line item here. And then with the 5 programs that we're going to be implemented, we bumped up a little bit the evaluation capacity here for this. So that's what that is. And then these are the program supplies, program staff reimbursements, and then just the learning management system, and then more training and program trainings. And that's that. Questions?
Well, representing Estes, I'm concerned with those. I mean, they're the only school district that is not increasing whatsoever. Where do you see that issue?
Increasing in terms of?
Well, in that chart you had, they were staying the same as far as cohorts.
Yeah, in terms of the blues program cohorts, yeah, part of it is there's fewer students that are to go through the cohorts. That's part of it. Another part of it is there are some struggles around capacity and the facilitators being able to implement the program. So we're working as hard as we can to provide that technical assistance along the way, both at the administration level, as well as the practitioners, the people who are actually implementing the programs. To kind of backfill a little bit, we've been doing some in-person, trainings with both students and with faculty members around top substance use topics. Again, not really included in the scope of work, but to try to increase what we're doing in Estes Park. So we've gone up and we've talked with families about high concentration cannabis use, which is associated with opioid use. And then we just about a week ago went up and talked to a couple hundred students on that topic as well. So yes, capacity is we're figuring out how to increase that capacity so that we can get more cohorts going through. We had a couple in year 1, and then a couple in year 2, and we're going to try to get more in year 3.
Okay. Well, if there's anything I can do to encourage them to find that capacity, let me know.
Great, I will. And a couple of other pivots that we've taken are to also increase, we're looking at the Guiding Good Choices program for families. Maybe we're hoping that a family-focused program will engage those families and draw them in. And if we're having challenges, reaching our benchmarks with the students.
Now, is that gonna also be in Spanish?
There are Spanish versions of the Guiding Good Choices, yes. And if I remember correctly, I'll get back to you on this. We trained in both Spanish and in English.
I think I read in there that something was both, and I think it was that Good Choices.
Everything we've done in Estes, we've had an eye towards serving the Latin Hispanic families up there.
Okay, thank you, Bert.
Of course, yeah.
Commissioner.
Thank you, and thank you for saying Latin, I appreciate that. I know that's from my friends in the southern part of the county, that's their preferred. Thank you. Well, first, I just want to say, I really appreciate still this approach that you have, that every school district has something that fits. There, it's not one size fits all, you're tailoring to fit that school district's need. And I agree with Trustee Youngin, it would be nice to see Estes Park have a little more, because I think sometimes in the community where there's not a lot of things to do for youth, which there are, but there's, it's still a little limited, that it's nice to have these choices. So I appreciate that. Also, I feel like the train the trainer and the way that you're trying to support, I see the sustainability built in here. And so I just wanted to call that out and thank you for that, so.
Yeah, so sustainability, we try not to wait until year 3 to start thinking about sustainability, right? We try to start thinking about sustainability from day one. And the trainer model is one of several approaches that we take. There are also other resources that we can provide, that we do provide the school districts in thinking about how can you potentially fundraise for this, make sure that you have administrative buy-in to continue this beyond the time that the PRC is around. And so we're constantly thinking about that because, again, you all preach in the choir, the worst thing that we could do is put all this money into these schools, and then once we leave, then all these efforts go away.
Well, I think that's a great point. We did that sometimes with behavioral health. We gave them each, the first year of behavioral health, we each gave them $100,000 to add a staff member and stuff. And it shows that down the road that it's better to try to really help have that sustainable. And that's why I also like a lot of that funding, which at first kind of raised my red flags, like, okay, why are we doing this way? But then I think it's been a wise choice to have that project association funded and let the school districts to come to that person, because you're right, they don't have the capacity for this. And so I think having that professional and not having to worry about all of the benefits and all the experts. So I think that is also another point I'd like to highlight. I think that just worked out really well. So thank you.
Yeah, and as the years have gone by and as the schools have been able to kind of stand up these efforts, we've drawn back our FTE on that. So we used to have 2 people to do this across the 3 school districts. Now we have 1 that can serve all 3 of them. So we're being pretty deliberate about that.
Thank you.
If I could just 30 seconds here, I know we're short on time, as we meet with the school districts and their behavioral health, the superintendent's behavioral team every quarter, and Nathan's always there now. And they pick and choose what they want, and they're having conversations, and it is really got this cohesive collaboration between the 3 school districts, starting with the superintendents and their mental health teams, which did not exist prior. We started during COVID, and some of the limitations are just based upon the school district and what their request is. And Nathan and his team are flexible and bend with that, which has been superb. And his data and reporting has been exemplary. So I feel this is one of the ones that I jump up and down yes with, because it is all prevention with our youth, but it has been flexible enough so the 3 school districts aren't kind of wedged into something that doesn't really work for them. And he's allowed that flexibility. So I just, hats off. I think this is a wonderful program and it's doing great work with our youth. I appreciate that. So
with that, I'll make the motion to approve this allocation and this proposal as written.
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Love that.
And so just really quick.
Anybody, oh, sorry,
Just-
anybody opposed?
Sorry. Just in case.
None, it passes unanimously, yes.
Just in relation to the other item on the docket,
That'll be-
are we able
that'll
to
be on
start
the-
this in July as opposed to?
Yep.
Okay, great. If, assuming the, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Larimer County Sheriff's Office. So I'm just doing a time check. We have 14 minutes left till.
We go fast.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
So I think you guys know who I am, Robert Cook with Larimer County Sheriff's Office. I supervise our mental health corresponder unit. And then I brought with me today in Lieutenant Van Hook. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself any more than that.
No.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. Can you skip to slide 9, please? So really, I just want to talk about some improvements in our data points from our last presentation. You guys are all aware that basically we used grant funds provided by ROAC. And certainly without those funds, again, we want to express our gratitude to the council and for both the funds and as well the support that we've gotten from the council in us being able to achieve some of the remarkable things that we've been able to achieve. So I want to talk a few seconds about the noteworthy data that we've gathered as a result of the work we've done. Substance use, both drugs and alcohol, 56% of our contacts for substance use issues or drugs, 44% alcohol. Emergency commitments, that's when we put somebody on a emergency hold. That's about 33% of all the holds combined. And then this one, especially for, although Shane just left, we've improved the objective of trying to really limit how many people actually go to jail from our contacts. We've made some steady improvement on that. This year, with the past year's stats, only 2.4% of people that we contact for mental health, substance use, or co-occurring conditions actually result in jail or criminal charges. Website tracking, that was one of our initiatives that we used the funding for with our corporal position. We've had 4,500 views, 524 different cities across the country. So what we found out is that our website is very comprehensive and people all across the country are actually using the data we have on our website. And then finally, self-admitted substance use when we ask people on our contacts is about 40%, 39.9% of people are letting us know that in addition to the mental health issues or the reason for contact, they're also either past substance use or currently using substance. And then if you could go to the next slide, I think it's 11, which basically has our proposed budget. As you can see, we asked for $280,000 total. This will cover about 52% of the costs associated with continuity of the 2 deputy positions and the corporal position. So that will cover 52.4%. The other $253,490 will come from the Larimer County Sheriff's Office budget. And then last slide. Next one, sorry. Again, I just want to say thank you again for all the support. We couldn't have made these goals come true without your support and grant funding. So thank you sincerely for all the support we've received from you guys.
Questions?
And I just wanted to add real quick, well done, great data points, that the 2 clinicians or 3 clinicians are mostly returning through behavioral health services, Larimer County.
There's some funding going to the
Yes.
district.
Yes, so I just want to make sure that, so a lot of support for this. Also, I want to just,
Pardon, Jessica, can you say that again so we hear that? I didn't hear it, just for the minutes.
There is funding to the co-responder unit from behavioral health services, not
Thanks.
necessarily our grant program, but from the department.
And that goes for the clinicians, not the deputies.
Yeah.
And this is only part of our military unit. We have obviously Sergeant Cook as well as 2 other deputies that is fully funded by the sheriff's office.
so, yeah. So I just wanted to share that it's when we talk about sustainability, they're having funds from other places, so I just wanted to point that out. And also, I just want to say, when you think about when you first started this conversation, you guys were saying 28 to 30% of the calls, and now you're almost at 70. Responding to the calls that you could, that's a tremendous outcome, and so I just wanted to commend you on that, so. I saw that in the data, and I thought that was pretty cool. That's always, that's just a huge increase in just a couple of years, so.
Just for the deputy portion of this unit is about $1 million. So the 280,000 is really covered about 25% of the total unit that the sheriff's office is put into it.
Yes.
Yeah, I piggyback on that. I really appreciate how you broke it down so we could actually see the costs and know that you're just asking, a minimal amount. I really appreciate that. I think that transparency is good. And also that you're keeping your ass down and that continuing with the CRU program. So I really appreciate it. I like the numbers, so thank you.
Thank you. Without putting anyone on the spot in particular, as we continue sustainability, obviously it's going to come funding of the county. Those are our desires for the sustainability of the thing.
Right. And I see that, and that's great that we're seeing that now.
So I'd like to make a motion, unless there are other questions, to approve this request as written and commend them for saving lives. So
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion.
I would too.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation, discussion?
Just one thing I'd like to, I'm sorry, I just remembered. So this is a Larimer County Sheriff's Office unit, and there's a lot of work in the Thompson School District, or some portion of that. So do you partner with Loveland Police? And it seems like that's a little added for Loveland as opposed to the other communities. So just wondering how.
So that program is actually kind of a mixture of both co-response and school resource officer.
Okay.
And that is basically completely funded, except for the part the sheriff's office pays about 50% of that deputy's salary and benefits and costs. And then the other 50% is coming from the school district. And then that clinician cost is actually totally funded by Thompson Valley or Thompson School District. So it is a part of this unit, and they're doing great things in the school district, in Thompson School District, but none of the ROAC funds are actually going to support that, just to clarify.
Thanks for that clarification.
Great question. Thank you for the clarification. Any further conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Does anybody oppose? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you for all you do.
well done.
Thank you.
Okay, we moving right along, 7 minutes, Rise Above Colorado.
Go. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kent McLennan, Executive Director for Rise Above Colorado. Thanks for having me back. I wanted to share with you, again, just some visuals of what you've helped support in this current grant year, the localization of the Connect Effect campaign here in Larimer County. These are a couple of samples of the specific data points and the messages that are going out that were facilitated through the youth, some of which are represented in these photos in the youth discussion groups that we had back last fall. This launched at the end of December. The campaign is continuing to run right now through April. So we'll have more to share as we do some of our grant reporting at the end of our April grant on that, but they're performing well ahead of benchmarks. We've got over 1 million impressions through this campaign so far here in Larimer County. So next slide. Just a quick reminder again of where we're focused on the prevention side of it. We'll skip forward from that. This is really a continuation of building on and leveraging everything the work that we've done in this first year that you've helped us to do. That we've done all the hard work of creating the campaign. We have it now, and now is the opportunity to continue to build on that. Behavior change takes time, and that ongoing messaging is important. So that's a major part of what we're planning here in terms of deploying the campaign online and through other posters and other methods. And then the second piece is our continued collaboration with the 3 school districts. So not only kind of where we started with Nate and CSU PRC in the relationships with those 3 school districts, we do have active conversations going in all 3 of them at varying levels. And it kind of speaks to the the commentary earlier about going where the school districts want and need us to go, as opposed to saying, this is your program, please do this. It's looked a little different. We have, I think, stronger buy-in to this point in Poudre School District, where we have the district is mandating that middle and high school health and wellness teachers deliver the non-prescribed lesson curriculum. And so that is getting out. So we'll have some results hopefully to report at the end of the school year around that. It has been more of an opt-in piece in Thompson for school and educators that are interested in it. And Estes Park, we've trained the school nurse and the one high school health and wellness teacher so that they can implement it. So it looks a little different in each, but we've got at least a good place to start in all three of them. So it's more of continuing to build that relationship and build the sustainability. We can teach and we can help support that, but ideally we want to get to that point where the teachers are doing it year in and year out, semester out, so that they can facilitate those discussions with their students. From a budget perspective, this is really pretty bare bones, and the good news is because we don't have creation costs around the media that we did in the first grant. So we've allocated 4 months of saturation level campaign for this next grant period. I will note that there is a broad fentanyl campaign coming out statewide through CDPHE that is supposed to launch sometime around the summer. I don't know the length of it. I think it's going to be pretty heavy, so I think we'll be judicious in our timing of when we would want to launch these 4 months so that we are not cluttered with those messages and can leverage those. And then the continued efforts with our staff doing project outreach and those connections with district folks, continuing to build on some of the evaluation so that we can report back to you out of the Larimer County youth that have gone through the not prescribed lesson as an example. We can look at outcomes around perception of risk and increased knowledge and that sort of thing, as well as collect ongoing data from our 2026 youth survey that we oversample here in Larimer County. So I'll leave it there for questions.
Questions? Fantastic. Any motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this grant proposal as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does anybody oppose? That passes unanimously. Thank you. And Matt, you were fast.
Thank
you all.
All right. Last agenda item is contract extension approval. I will turn that over to Mr. John Voss.
Yeah, two of the grantees, their contracts that are running right now, one of which expires Monday. They've asked for an extension for that to continue through the end of June. They're not asking for more money. And then the next cycle would be, they want to convert to a July 1st to June 30 cycle going forward. That is CSU. And then the other one was the construction project for the renovations at Harvest Farm. They, I think it goes till the end of May right now, and they're just needing more time. And so I've got the draft is, we're just giving them plenty of room and going to October 31st. We can always revise it again if that's not enough, but I think that should be plenty of time. They've indicated it would.
So if they want to move to July and we're looking at new ones and they have these old ones, is that track that the two different grants are going to be?
We're going to line them up.
Okay.
We're going to do the new one effective July 1st, and that's what he was wanting to make sure.
Yeah.
And that the old one will extend until June 30.
But then you said October, is that the construction?
That's the construction.
Okay.
So CSU is going to July to June 30 permanently. The construction's a one-time project. And so that one that ends, I can't remember if it's May 31st or June 30th.
So will it impact the one we approved today that was?
No, that one is, they have two contracts actually going right now.
Okay.
One for their operation recurring and then the renovation.
Just trying to make sure.
Great question.
Yep.
Any further questions?
Thank you for keeping this all straight.
He's been doing a lot of work and both of you. Thank you. Motion?
Yes, I make a motion to extend both of the grants to the terms that were just.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does anybody oppose? Hearing none, those pass unanimously.
And we're on time.
Holy cow! We have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? It's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'm so glad I was here because I'm on jury duty.
Oh, that's
Right?
You got out of that one?
I got out of it.
No, we're glad you were here.
Just about the right
Woo.
So now.
Thank you.